Welcome to the Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea. The subject today is Venus and Jupiter ingress into the sign of Gemini. Please like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Today, my guest is Sue Rose Minahan and myself, Elizabeth Liz Muschett. Welcome, Sue. It's great to have you back.
Oh, hi, Liz. It really is. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, thank you. And we're going to jump right in. So, to get a hold of Sue, her website is talkcosmos.com, and you can email her at sueminahanastrology@gmail.com. And my website is alightpath.com, and you can email me, liz@alightpath.com. So, we're talking about the sign of Venus and Jupiter moving into the sign of Gemini. And Venus moves into Gemini on May 23rd, and Jupiter moves in on May 25th. And this chart is May 25th for Seattle, Washington, of Jupiter and Venus being in Gemini.
Yes. And I know we'll be speaking more of it, but immediately speaking, as you had mentioned, Venus in Gemini is distinctly different than Taurus. It's communicative air, but it is in mutual reception to Mercury. So it's exciting from that respect.
And Mercury rules Gemini, the sign of Gemini, which is all about communication. So the planets have been ingressing into Gemini. On May 20th, the sun moved into Gemini. As I said before, May 23rd, Venus moved into Gemini. May 25th, Jupiter will move into Gemini. On June 3rd, Mercury will move into Gemini. In July 20th of this year, Mars will move into Gemini. So it's getting to be a Gemini party. And then on July 7th of 2025, Uranus will move into Gemini.
I suppose all of these transits, ingresses, are preparing us for next year when that long orbital pattern with Uranus in Gemini. Lots of communication.
Right. And if you haven't had a conversation that you've been wanting to have with somebody or ask for a raise, now that the energy is going into Gemini, it's probably going to help you have the courage to do that. So, Gemini is a mutable air sign, it's the sign of the twins, it's bridging spirit and matter.
Yeah, I appreciate that as that definition of it because of the twins, Castor and Pollux. One was mortal, one was immortal. Of course, the mortal one died, but yet upon his death, beseeching the gods of Jupiter, which of course Gemini is in right now, agreed that they would stay aligned and visit the underworld and the celestial heavens. But that really represents that we ourselves are incarnated spirit. We have that within ourselves, and that I think Gemini is constantly trying to see beyond the matter into the spiritual realm.
Thank you. Mercury is the messenger and is Gemini's ruling planet. It traditionally rules the third astrological house. And some key words of Gemini are awareness, communication, intelligence, adaptable, versatile, talkative, alert, changeable, imaginative, and about learning. And then
Yes.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say Gemini likes to gather information. It defines and labels its environment, and that helps with the process of communication. And as far as being a messenger, because it's so close to the sun, it but really for in mythology, it Gemini, not Gemini, but Mercury is the one that Zeus or Jupiter, as in the Roman pantheon, would send. Mercury was able to go to Hades, whereas you can't go there, to the realm of the underworld, the deceased, and would send Mercury on many, many messengers. And you think about it, it's like our thoughts. We travel in many directions.
Yes, and Gemini rules short distance travel too, because like Mercury
Mm.
going from the upper world to the underworld, it's like he's traveling back and forth. So that's, I think, important to add to that. So the caution can be scattered, impulsive, restless, and superficiality.
Yes, going too quickly can become missing certain points. It has its benefits, everything has its pros and cons, but yet it is that necessity where we want the other part of Mercury, the Virgo, to assimilate and organize all that material that's been brought to hand. But yes.
Okay, and then we're going to talk about Venus a little bit. Venus rules the sign of Taurus, which is earth, and also rules Libra, which is an air sign. Venus is the Roman goddess, and in Greek mythology, she's called Aphrodite. She can be a morning star and an evening star. She switches back and forth every 9 months, so she stays a morning star for 9 months and an evening star for 9 months.
I, I think, yes, she does. Is it 9 months? It is a little shorter, I think, in the morning and longer in the evening. And there's a whole, you're going to be talking with Marcia Muschett about the Venus star point, and perhaps she'll mention it, but there is like a 40-day in between. There's a whole Venus has been observed by all cultures for so long because she's the brightest thing in the sky besides the sun and the moon. And so she does spend, there is a system to that.
And Venus is about attraction and desire, love, creativity and harmony, pursuit of beauty, sensual and feeling, resources, possessions, values and valuables, and relationships. Anything to add to that?
I'm, I like those very much, Liz. Venus, because she does have that duality of signs, like all the personals do, so many of the planets do. And one being Earth, which goes along with that sensual and feelings. But in Libra, with the resourceful values and relationships, it really is a canopy, not a canopy, a coca. What is that with the where it, anyway, many different attributes. So yes, I agree.
Like an umbrella, under the umbrella, they all fit.
Indeed.
Okay, and then Jupiter is the king of gods, and I know you know the mythology about Jupiter, so maybe you can share just a smidgen about that.
Jupiter is Olympian god, resided up on Mount Olympus. And really, it was where he took the reign over from Saturn, who had taken it over from his father, Uranus. And the beauty of Jupiter is that we have free will. For good or bad or indifference, we have free will. And in Greek mythology, he's called Zeus, but the Romans took over all the Greek gods and renamed them.
And Jupiter traditionally rules both Sagittarius and Pisces, but more in the modern now, it's just Sagittarius. And traditionally ruled the ninth and the 12th houses, and now it's just the ninth house in more modern astrology. Jupiter's about the higher mind, knowledge and wisdom, abundance, blessings, growth, good fortune, searching for truth and meaning, prosperity, and luck. Do you want to add anything?
But law, I think, isn't law also, is that's not so much Sagittarius, but it is Jupiter law. It's there's different parts of the chart that can, or planets that go into law, like 12th house is more, would be natural law, whereas this is more man-made law. And then whether it's lawyers, but it feeds into the 10th house, which is, of course, government and rules and all of that.
And then the caution is lack of motivation, lazy, excesses, overindulgent, and lack of practicality. Anything else?
Well, I think being opinionated because it's belief systems, and that does get a bit into Sagittarius, but it is interesting. Lack of motivation. It's always curious how some of these how can I say it? When we get too much involved with one focus, there needs to be a counterbalance. That's why there's this access of in signs between of a wholeness. But with Jupiter, why is it that it's called lack of motivation and lazy? What would you say?
Well, that's, a negative side to Jupiter. So I
Maybe because it goes so easy. It's abundance and expansion, and it just sits there. I mean, as a shadow side is always tricky to understand. Only that one negative that needs to be counterbalanced, of course. So that's I'm not thinking it's the whole picture at all.
Well, it's like if you want a job, usually it helps if you put in an application. But I remember knowing somebody that they just sat at home and thought somebody was going to come knock on their door. And it wasn't like that they lived in a place that was super accessible. They lived, off the main road. They lived a little bit out of town.
Mm.
And so it was, to me, that was the lack of motivation.
Well, and when I think about it too, because before traditionally when Jupiter ruled both signs, always before Neptune was discovered in the 1800s, um, and I'm thinking 12th house, that there is that idea that the world is perfect in its whole orientation, and who are we to interfere? So perhaps there is still that sense of faith, because faith and higher vision, and perhaps just having its focus on other things that aren't getting down to the details, more the macro more than the micro. It's a big picture.
Well,
Yeah.
nowadays we have social networking, so we can just put our resume on that and people will come knock on our door, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we have the Venus ingresses into Gemini on May 23rd at 1:30 p.m., 6.5 hours after the Sagittarius full moon. So already, a strong, powerful thing of the full moon happening that day. And then Venus ingresses the same day. So that makes it a little bit stronger. And going from an earth sign to an air sign, and Venus loves earth, but now it's about communication and perhaps some duality added in there. um
And
so that sounds good.
it does, with Venus being having a friend. Like you're saying, it loved being in Taurus, but yet it's not giving up everything. It's now gaining a friend with Mercury, which is in Taurus. So we call that mutual reception when each one is in the other sign. And so there is a partner to confer with as they're moving along with our values and resources and relationships and all the aspects, or not aspects, but characteristics, the archetypal characteristics that Venus involves.
Well, and since it's the sun has already ingressed a few days before, it's like the sun is lighting up the pathway. Then in the nighttime, the moon is full, so it's lighting the pathway. So it's like giving
Ah,
us all this light to bring in this new energy and this new communication. So hopefully we'll find new ways to communicate, hopefully
I
in a
like
more loving manner.
exactly. Isn't that beautiful? And it also gives hope that there's a sequence of energetic influences that open up more possibilities. I like that. I
Okay.
mean,
Well,
after a full moon.
mhm. And so I looked at some of the aspects that are going on with this Venus and Jupiter ingressing into Gemini. And the biggest one that I see is a little mini grand trine here. So in the light blue and the dark blue, connecting that all together, we have Venus and Jupiter sextile 60 degrees away from Neptune, and Neptune's sextile to Pluto, which is 60 degrees away. Then the Pluto connects back to the Jupiter and Venus with a trine 120 degrees. So this aspect is all connected together. Would you like to say anything about that?
Well, I know we will be talking a great deal about it, and the Sabians are coming up. Always with sextiles, there's so much connection and creativity involved with that, because anytime you connect something, it adjusts and it changes, and it's a flow. It's a powerful aspect. Actually, it's one of the primary
Ptolemaic aspects.
Ptolemaic aspects, yes. And here we have the benefics, as tradition often says, conjunct, although they're out of sign, but they're still very harmonious as far as sharing a collaboration and looking at how can my values be expanded. How still Venus is involved with values, looking to Jupiter, that's at the very end of its cycle, which shortly will go into Gemini, to say, okay, what can we, what values can we talk about here that really need further opening up? And then has such great support with with Pluto, that is going to stay in Aquarius, a networking air sign that works very well with Gemini. Aquarius seems to understand Gemini, I think, very well. So if we have changes, we can look at that as being a positive input. And then we also have the other outer planet, Neptune, at its last degree, which it will stay at that last degree, I think, until next year when it goes into Gemini. It's the macro. So it's like macro and micro, and trying to figure out all the options and possibilities. We can date, we can dream, we can work on there's success opening up, I think.
Yes, Neptune will stay in Pisces until next year and then go into Aries. And since
Oh, thank you. That's right.
and Neptune will be at 29 degrees for the next 4 months, and Jupiter for these few days here is at 29 degrees of Taurus, and that 29th degree is like a peaking point. It's like finishing up that work or that energy to move into the next sign. Now, Neptune has plenty of time to finish up some energy or tasks and move into the next sign, but Jupiter just has a couple of days to finish up that, and it's also called the arcanic degree. And so that's a changing degree, and so sometimes it doesn't act exactly like the sign it's in. So the 29th degree of Taurus can act very different than 0 through 28. Acts a little bit more like a Taurian energy, but then it, as it gets to that 29th degree, it's, packing its bags, on the way to the airport, ready to get on that plane to move
Yes.
or go
Yes.
visit or go on a vacation.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
and the mini grand trine is all these planets, Pluto, Neptune, Jupiter, and Venus, are working together harmoniously to accomplish what they want to accomplish.
Yeah, and I think for visions, for all of the new projects, I know within ourselves we're doing this, I'm sure, and many people are eager. If they haven't figured out, they're in the process of opening up to the possibilities that they're able to envision, and it's through that dialogue of their resources and their relationships and groups.
And then in the red, we have a cardinal grand cross between the south node and Vesta and the north node, Mars and Chiron in Ceres. So they're all circled in red, and oftentimes you can feel like you're being pulled in 4 different directions, and it's like a little chaotic because it's like, oh, but I got to finish this up, oh, but I have to do that first, and oh, I forgot about this one over here, I have a doctor's appointment. And so it's like being pulled in all these different directions. It's just like, I would say, take a deep breath, figure out what the top one that you need to accomplish, maybe 2 if you have time, and sometimes the rest can wait a few hours or the next day or the following week. So
Wise counseling, because cardinal is action and oppositions and squares are action. So we're looking, it's just a natural energy to want to figure out what to do. And what the areas we're working in are so constructive. Mars, thankfully, is involved, a personal planet, because, and in its own sign, Aries, so it's very instinctive and impulsive. But the goal here, I think, is to find out how to nurture our wounds so that our hearth, which is Vesta, can, like an altar, benefit and serve our direction for our autonomy and in those relationships that we have. So part of it is it's synergetic with that other mini trine, because our South Node in Libra, which we're natural with, we're good with our relationships, but yet maybe we're not remembering ourself enough. And so that mini trine with Venus that we're adjusting, transforming with Pluto and Jupiter is really going to help us figure out how to do this. So it's, like you say, taking a deep breath. Thank you. Good memory. Good reminder.
well, in the North Node and Mars and Chiron being in the sign of Aries, Aries is about self, and Mars is like take action to heal or look at our wounds. And it could have come from the South Node that we brought it forward in relationships or when we were younger. And it's time to take action and do something to start the healing process. And Ceres, across from Vesta, Ceres is about grief, but it's also about nurturing that grief to move forward. So, like, probably something has to be released to move forward. And Vesta, home and hearth in the sign of Cancer is, how do we feel safe and secure or nurtured? So it's like you do one little thing, and to me, it feels like everything readjusts.
Exactly. The universe loves action. Mars is going to do that. And thank you for bringing back to Ceres, because it's in Capricorn. And what Capricorn wants is a plan. Figure out steps, write your agenda. Just decide that you will come up with at least one action to fulfill, and one's on their path. That's good.
And then we're going to start talking about the Thor's hammer, and it goes from Vesta to Chiron, and they're 90 degrees apart. So that's a square. And Vesta and Chiron both make a sesquiquadrate, which is 135 degrees to the moon. And a Thor's hammer, requires that some action be taken. So going back to the cardinal cross of that North Node, Mars, and Chiron in Aries in the 8th house, to transform and let go, to work on that. That's probably a very necessary point. But it also goes back to how you were maybe nurtured when you were younger, and it has an emotional component. And then the opposite of the moon would be the sun, to how to release it through the Gemini. So maybe some talking about it would help.
Indeed. Talking for Gemini always helps to resolve. It's finding that willing ear where you can get honest feedback and grow as friends. I love this Thor's hammer, which is maybe an oxymoron because it's a lot of work. You look at a sesquiquadrate is a square, 90 degrees, plus a semi-square of 45 degrees. It's double action that needs to get worked on. And when we talk about the moon is all about processing, and the moon wants to process at its own rate. It does anyway, every 28 days, and it has its phases. And the fact that it's trying to work with Vesta of our home in a safe place, as you say, but it's also looking at that moon. How is the moon going and then we have Mars along with Chiron, even closer, I think, to that Vesta. Mars is, just by its nature, separating. It's instinctive. And in Aries, it's taking new action. So this is difficult for the moon, except the moon, thankfully, is in Sagittarius. And Sagittarius can look at the big picture. And although it may be opinionated and have its opinions, that's really, I'm thinking, the beauty of this particular chart, that really we're remembering, what are we looking at? We're looking at Venus and Jupiter going into Gemini. So it's a matter of communicating to ourselves and to others, because more information helps us change our belief systems. And when it comes to that with our moon, then we change our stories. And maybe then we can get back to that childhood story that didn't look so great, because we're looking at it from maybe a view of a child that didn't understand everything. And we can begin to feel differently about it and realize how it's benefiting us, how to make that chironic wound into strength. We can hope. It's a path. It's going to take some, and I like what you said, Liz. It takes communication. It takes us opening up pathways. Yes.
Yes, and, if you can find a trusted friend or a counselor that you trust, and if you couldn't find that, I would recommend journaling and even just having a
Mm,
conversation with yourself.
absolutely. Good, good, good. Yes. Just write it.
So now we're going to look at the sapient symbols for that mini grand trine. So we have Venus and Jupiter at Gemini at 1 degree. A glass bottom boat reveals undersea wonders, the revelation of unconscious energies brought into focus. Things previously unseen become evident, becoming aware of the outside below the normal level of consciousness, a new dimension of reality.
Boy, that really speaks of those twins, doesn't it? Castor and Pollux going down below, and matter to spirit. Isn't that amazing? Because we do have Neptune there, the sea, the undersea wonders. There is synergetic here.
Right, because the shows that they show of, underwater cameras of all the beauty that's under there, it's like if you're on the top, even if it's really clear, you can only see so far. So it's very magical to see, to go scuba diving or to see shows that show the underwater. It's beautiful.
Yes, you did that, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, I scuba dove quite a
No.
bit in my time. Okay, would you like to do Pluto, Sue?
It's at Aquarius 2 degrees. And as Liz has mentioned, it doesn't say that retrograde, but it is retrograde. And therefore, normally with the Sabians, we would round it off and go to the top. And there's also, like in our show that we're together with, Talk Cosmos, we do the 3. But here, I love the fact that, and this is a learning process for me to realize that you left it at 2 degrees, because it is going back to 1. So therefore, it would be rounded off. It's an unexpected thunderstorm. And it's that need to develop the inner security that helps us meet the unexpected, which, of course, with Aquarius looking at its modern ruler of Uranus, is going to have that unexpected situations where it unleashes tension and release and clears the air, which is like the thunderbolt, isn't it? And those flashes of clarity, it really speaks so much of how I think of Uranus to begin with, and thunderstorms, that you see everything and then it's gone, and there you follow. Maybe that's, and I think that's why they call Aquarius quite intuitive. So it's putting issues through illumination. And this is most amazing, that all human achievements can be washed away. It's nature's challenge. That's quite a, I'll be glad to hear what you have to say more about it.
Well, it's like after a thunderstorm, it's like the ions, it changes all the ions. And it's just like, even though it was, you know, it felt like maybe I was in danger, but I'm really not in danger, but it feels like exciting and scary at the same time. But then afterwards, the air just feels so cleared. And, lots of times with a thunderstorm, it'll rain. So it washes, you could say it's washing our fear away.
I see. And also the fact that, of course, a thunderstorm is nature, and the fact that it's the beginning of, and it releases. I know that there's a whole scientific way that Rick Levine tells us about how lightning happens. It's when the positive, and then it has no other way to go except to have lightning. And so it is a challenge. Yes.
Right. It releases that built up tension, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and then we have Neptune at Pisces 30, a majestic rock formation resembling a face is idolized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness, and as he grows up begins to look like it. Projection of an idea can lead to actuality. Be clear, you might get what you want. Capacity for self-transformation developed through visualization. And can you read the last one, because I can't see it?
Yes, basic formula is, in parenthesis, the word starts a new universe. The seeding keyword, archetypalization. This is so powerful. It is that connecting sextile between Venus, Jupiter, and Pluto. So, of course, Pluto is transmutive, and Neptune here, it dissolves things, and it's in Pisces. It's at the very last degree of Pisces. It's at its epitome of it. And this fact of the rock formation of such a beautiful, like it's saying, capacity of transformation. And it's through visualization. It's not just the word, it's using all of these tools.
So, in summary of all of them together, to me, it's like being able to see a new place, a new reality. It's like cleansing, and then being able to manifest new things into our life. Would you like to summarize, Sue?
I agree with that. And it's empowering to realize that although we may not see where it's going, we can feel it. And we have a role to do, and that is visualize it. And in that role, start defining your words and talking and working it through, that we may not know instantly. And that's okay, because it's a process. It's that moon process. It's very beautiful. Thank you, Liz, for bringing.
Thank you. Okay, and then Jupiter ingresses into Gemini on May 25th at 4:15 in the afternoon in Seattle, and this is the chart for that. And I think we'll just go on to the next chart unless you want to say something about this one.
It's good.
Okay, and then the mini grand trine is still, active in this, and then the new aspect is the finger of God in purple, and we're going to talk about that one. So a finger of God is two planets that are sextile each other, which is 60 degrees apart, and we have Saturn sextile Mercury, and they're both quincunx or in conjunct 150 degrees from the ascendant and the south node.
Interestingly, both the finger of God, or Yod as it is referenced, and the Thor's hammer have this sextile feature that's very strong. Yet the difference is here, in the Thor's hammer, it's an action-oriented extreme, you could say, with more squares, 135 degrees with the square and the semi-square. But in this one, the quincunx is a matter of adjustment, many people refer it to, because technically the modes and the elements have nothing in common, meaning that in order to have that apex, which happens to be the south node, and right here with the Pacific Northwest's ascendant, which wouldn't be, depending on other features, other locations, but it's like how to get a bird's eye view, you could say, of what the patterns want to speak about, that you can work together, so that instead of oil and water, you might have oil and vinegar and make salad dressing.
Well, and I like to think of as a yod or a finger of God as a divining rod. It's like one is one hand and one is another, and then you have it's pointing, and you can do it with um, copper rods, or you can do it if you find the proper stick. And it's like, you're focusing that energy, but a release point is the opposite of what that energy is pointed to. So the north node would be the release point, and that kind of works in with that Thor's hammer about working on, taking action to heal any wounds you might have, or it could even be helping other people heal their wounds.
Absolutely. Whatever you give out, you get back. It's like you can relate. What I love about this is looking at they say, because this is very archetypal as far as a yacht. It goes to show people from the ascendant, which is the Aries point, to the 6th house to the 8th house. Well, here you have Saturn a little bit in the 5th house. But in other words, if that sextile, it would be Mercury in the 8th house that would be the key to helping. Well, Mercury is in that mutual reception with Venus, which is all in Gemini, which is so close to Jupiter. So, what I'm getting at is that by communicating the values, by really working with the big picture to see what is it perhaps in my sense of partnership or relationships or values or how I see myself that I'm not using. How can I embolden that courage to become, to focus more on, I would say, your own attributes that you need to share in a relationship instead of perhaps projecting onto others or focusing too much on their needs, because that could be the shadow side of South Node in Libra.
Thank you. So I have a quote here. The world you see is less of an indication about the world and more of an indication about the vision you are using. And that's by Alan Cohen.
You are so brilliant. Absolutely. And that says everything about that whole process. Is anything shadow wise, we need to adjust, and we have lots of tools, and it is with working with others. This is very exciting.
So to kind of sum up what we've talked about today, um, communication is key, whether it's you're talking or journaling or writing things down and burn it up. It doesn't matter. It's like it's really a key point for this energy that we're into this at this time. Would you like to add anything to sum up?
I agree with you. And interestingly, I know we do the new moon, but you and Justin do the full moon, and this is just after that. And of course, you can do a vision board in a sense for either one. I know we talk about it with our new moon on Talk Cosmos archetypal symbols, but with you and Justin, it's so significant, especially when it has to do about Gemini and Sagittarius, because that is our belief systems. And it could be that we're conditioned about something or our childhood. Who knows where the story begins and ends, but we have that power to reshift our personal story and our belief systems and allow ourselves to manifest these dreams that we're all working on very strongly.
Thank you. So for upcoming episodes, there's the full moon forecast for the Sagittarius full moon, and Justin Elzy will be back with me to do that episode, and astrology forecast for June, and Justin Elzy will be here to do that with me. And then on Talk Cosmos, the archetypal symbols will be the Gemini new moon on June 6th, and we will be live on June 2nd, which is a Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And then the Astrology Star Sisters Talk Over Tea is now 3 episodes a month, and Sue will be back with me next month to talk about summer solstice. And next week or so, I'll have Marcia Bouchard, and she'll be talking about the Venus star point in Gemini. And then Madam Simon will be back to talk about Saturn stations retrograde.
I think you're brilliant, Liz. This is such a strong content and opportunities. I'm excited to hear.
So, I hope you all come back again, enjoy more episodes. And we are now 3 episodes a month for the Astrology Star Sisters. And Sue is from Talk Cosmos. It's a YouTube podcast and it's heard on 1150 KKNW in the Seattle area. She's the host and founder. And her YouTube channel is youtube.com/ at Talk Cosmos. And her website is talkcosmos.com. And then you can tell us a little bit about the slide you made.
Oh, thank you so much, Liz. I am doing a blog, and you can find that on my website. And then also there's a QR code if you want to. And of course, I have a newsletter and I'm starting Substack. I'm doing a poem I love to create, and it's a way of talking to myself. It's one more way of communication. So perhaps it's all synergetic, and I'm putting my blog on that. And if you want to sign up for the newsletter, there's either go to the website, it's always available, or right there. And thank you, Liz, with your friend in Puerto Rico who reminded me about the cosmos flower. I love that flower. My husband loves that flower. So I added it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And she'll be really happy that you appreciated it too.
I do.
And I also have a newsletter that I send out once a week, and you can go to my website and sign up for that or send me an email and I'll add you. So, again, to get hold of Sue, it's talkcosmos.com, Sue Minahan Astrology at gmail.com. And my website is alightpath.com, and you can email me, Liz at alightpath. So, thank you for being here today with us. We appreciate all of you, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, and thank you to all the people that watch us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.